A sci-fi alien women's story in simple English moves through the wreck of the drift ship with quiet feet and steady hands. Her name is Claire, and she is from a small coast town where the wind is kind and the sand is pale now. The wind is the hiss of air through torn metal. Now the sand is dust that floats in the blue light of an alien corridor. Claire carries a patch kit and a coil of fiber line. She keeps her breath slow. She keeps her heart slow. She thinks of home and of the harbor. Bell that rings at evening's distress call had said one word again and again. Help, help.
Help.
Had answered because she always answers. She is human, and she believes that a hand should meet a hand. She docked her small tug with care and stepped. Into the silent hollow shadow, moved like a ribbon across the light. Claire raised her lamp and spoke soft and plain words so nothing would fear it. Is all right. I am here to help. From the shadow came three figures with bright eyes and silver bands. On their arms they were tall, and their hair shone like the inside of a shell. Their faces were different from human faces, but they were not cruel. One who stood before the others spoke first in a voice that seemed to carry a distant tide. She said her name was Isala. The others were Marin and Lyra. They were not soldiers, they were wanderers and singers and keepers of maps older than human boats their ship had been. Struck by a silent storm between stars, the storm had broken their main spine and locked their doors. It had taken their power and their song engine. Without song, the ship could not heal. Without song, the maps could not show the way. Home. Claire looked at the broken panels and the charred smell in the air. She said they would need a bridge to share power. She said she could build one with her tug and with their old Zola watched her with careful eyes that held both pride and worry. She asked how a single human could do what their storm singers could not do. Claire said she could not sing, but she could listen, and she could make pieces talk to each other. That is a kind of song. Toothy led her through blue halls where murals showed waves that rolled across stars. The murals were cracked and dim, but still they were beautiful. Marin touched one with her fingers, and the paint flickered like small fishin'. The engine bay. Claire saw the song engine as a ring of crystal ribs around a dark heart. Cables hung loose like sea grass. A low hum lay dead in the metal. She opened her kit and set small tools in a neat line. She asked for quiet, and for trust they gave. Both. Claire ran a fiber from her tug to their broken core. She clipped it to a clean edge and read the tiny lights by touch. She spoke the numbers in a low voice, and Marin repeated them again like a steady drummer's passed without clocks. The drift ship sighed as pressure found new paths. Lyra brought water in a pale cup. Isla stood near and asked what Claire needed. Claire said she needed a stable beat and a strong heart. She needed a reason for the ship to turn back to life. As Sola said she could give a beat. She pressed her hand to a panel, and a soft tone woke and fell and woke again. Claire aligned her work to that tone. She made a simple rhythm for the power to following the quiet. They began to speak of their homes. Isella spoke of a world of long violet reefs and tall trees that sang with wind she had left to chart safe paths for her daughters. Marin spoke of a sister who loved to race light across the shallows of the sky. Lyra spoke of a garden where stones warmed under twin suns. Claire spoke of her coast and the bell and a diner where her friend Tia served hot pie in a warm room. She spoke of the old tug that had once hauled nets and now hauled Hapathe's ship. Trembled the fiber line. Lit like dawn under ice, Claire felt the flow and told them to hold the rhythm. Hold it, and do not fear. A siren shape stirred in the far vents. A thin chitter ran along the rails. Lyra said the storm had awoken scavengers that rode the vacuum and bit into sound. If they chewed the beat, the engine would fail. Claire tied a second line to a copper spine and looped it in a simple knot. She showed Marin how to keep the knot tight by counting to 12 again and again. She showed Lyra how to listen for false echoes and warn her in time. She asked Azella to keep the tone steady. Scavengers came like teeth without mouths. They tugged at the edges of the new rhythm. The beat faltered once like a boat in a sudden trough. Claire set her palm to the crystal rib and gave a new count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Simple and firm. The engine found the count and held it. The scavengers slipped away. As if buried air warmed, a faint light traveled along the murals, and the fish in paint seemed to swim. Marin laughed in a small way, and Lyra smiled with relief that made her eyes. Wetasola did not smile, yet her gaze stayed on Claire as if to test the promise of human hands. Claire checked the gauges she had taped to the wall. The flow was not enough to move the ship yet. They needed the outer vanes to open and breathe, but the vanes were locked by old code that did not know human words. Asked to see their oldest map, Izala led her to a room like a chapel where a globe hung in a lattice. Lines of light ran through it, and slow rivers glyphs rose and fell like tide. Marks. Claire could not read the glyphs, but she could see patterns. She took a piece of chalk from her kit and drew on the deck. She drew a circle and long arrows and short arrows. She asked them what glyph meant open and what glyph meant safe. Lyra pointed and traced the sign with her finger. Claire built a small key. From scrap and a coil spring, she set the key to match the circle and arrows she had drawn. She pressed it to the latch of the vane control and turned with steady. For Seminole groaned like old wood. The vanes woke and opened. A little air began to move like a first breeze at morning. Isala let out a breath she had held for too long. Just then the ship shook with a new fear. A silent beacon outside was flashing and calling in a tongue. None of them liked pirate scavengers with bodies and guns. They would board when the vanes opened. Wide Marin looked at Claire with eyes that said, "We must hide." Lyra said they should close the vanes again. Izala asked Claire what humans do when a storm grows and there is no safe harbor. Claire said, "Humans make cliffs where there are none. They make shelter with rope and grit. They make allies out of strangers by standing together." She said they would not close the vanes. They would turn the vanes into a shield, and a voice ran to the console and tied the new beat to a short loop that knocked like a fist. She ran the loop to the vanes and set them to sway in a pattern like light on water. She asked Isola to sing a low note and hold it steady. She asked Marin and Lyra to answer in turn with a high and a middle. Notesh did not need words. She needed shape. She needed human sense that a pattern can push back. A bullet vanes moved in slow arcs. The engine beat under them. The three voices held their notes. Claire tuned the loop until the arcs in the notes made a field that pushed on space itself. Pirate skiff slid closer. Its claws reached for the lock seam. Its lights blinked in a code of demand, and Threthfield met the skiff and turned its own echo back onto it. Its claws slipped and chattered. Its lights stuttered as if confused. It tried again and again, and found only a mirror that gave its noise back to its geared skiff, veered off in a sulk, and drifted into the shadow of a dead hull. Claire cut the loop and let the notes. Fatasola bowed her head for a long moment. Then she looked up, and her eyes were wet with bright lines. She said the word ally in her language, and then in human speech she called, "Claire, ally and kin of the Tita." Claire smiled in a small way and said they could still do more. The ship could move now, but not far. They needed one last thing. They needed a guide. Starasola led them to a dome, where the stars rolled like a slow river. She pointed to a pale arc that curved like a sail. That was the sign of her home, but the maps were still weak, and the arc had many paths. Claire took a small mirror from her kit. It was a simple old thing from the tug. She held it to catch the light of the dome and bounced a soft beam across the globe. In the lattice, she moved the mirror until the beam met the pale arc at a place where the lines of the old map crossed with the new beath. Globe pulsed once like a heart that finds its rhythm after fear. A true path lit. The path was thin, but steady. Marin laughed without sound and hugged Lyra. Isala touched the metal rail as if it were the hand of a friend. Ship moved not with a jump, but with a long breath. The murals brightened, and the painted fish flowed as if they were alive. Air smelled less of smoke and more of salt that was not salt, but Memora. Claire felt sleep tug at her, but she stayed awake. She checked the fiber line and the key and the loop and all the humble things she had made. She knew that simple tools were brave when they serve. A good Hardasola came to stand beside her. She thanked Claire in her own words and in human words. She said her people had a vow to honor those who bring them safely from the back of the dark. She said the vow meant devotion and service and shared road. She said it did not mean chains. It meant respect and choice, and the work of Cara Claire nodded and said humans make vows to, not for ownership, but for keeping watch. She said she would not claim anyone as less or as property. She would walk beside, and she would teach, and she would learn. So La placed a silver band in Claire's hand. It was light as foam and strong as a mooring. She said it matched the bands on their own arms, a mark of alliance, not a shackle. Claire slipped it on and felt a soft warmth. Marin and Lyra came close, and together the four of them watched the thin path grow brighter. The storm that had broken the ship might throw one last black wave,